Have you ever woken up one morning and felt like the world around you had quietly shifted overnight? The faces are the same, the routines are the same, but something in you is no longer willing to play along. What once felt normal now feels hollow. What once entertained you now feels draining. This is the first shock of spiritual awakening, the unsettling moment when the old life begins to dissolve and you can't pretend it fits anymore. At first, it feels confusing. You wonder if you're the one who changed too fast or if everyone else is sleepwalking through a dream you can't return to. Friends invite you out, conversations continue like they always have, but you find yourself zoning out mid-sentence. Gossip feels heavy, small talk feels painful. Even laughter, the kind that used to bond you to others, feels forced when it no longer rises from truth. You sit there smiling, but inside you're asking, what am I still doing here? It's not arrogance, it's not superiority, it's awakening stripping away the masks. You start seeing through the illusions, how people chase validation, how they cling to roles they secretly resent, how they numb themselves with busyness just to avoid sitting in silence. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That clarity creates distance, not because you stopped loving people, but because you stopped resonating with what kept you connected before. This is where many people panic. They think they're losing their mind, or worse, losing their life. In reality, what's falling away is everything false. The job that never matched your soul. The friendships that survived only on shared distraction. The identity built on what others expected you to be. All of it begins to crumble, not to punish you, but to free you. And yes, it feels terrifying. You stand at the edge of what you've always known, staring into a void with no clear map. That's why so many resist awakening. They cling to the comfort of old roles rather than walk into the unknown. But the unknown is where truth waits. That's where you meet the raw, unfiltered version of yourself, the one you've been running from and searching for at the same time. This is the entry point. Awakening is not gentle at first. It shakes you, it strips you, it leaves you staring at your life like a stranger in your own story. But hidden in that disorientation is the beginning of freedom. And if you can hold steady in the chaos, you'll see that what feels like falling apart is actually the first step toward becoming whole. Because the journey doesn't end with shock. It begins there, and what comes next is even more profound. Once the first shock of awakening hits, you quickly realize something even harder. You don't know who you are anymore. The old version of you has fallen away, but the new one hasn't fully arrived. You're standing in between stories, in a place many spiritual teachers call the void. It's disorienting, lonely, and at times unbearable. In this phase, life feels like it has no clear ground. You wake up and wonder what you're supposed to do. The hobbies that used to light you up feel meaningless. The plans you once had for the future seem irrelevant. Even your own goals, the ones you worked so hard to achieve, suddenly carry no weight. And yet, you can't go back. It's like shedding an old skin. You can't climb back inside it once it's gone. This is the space where the soul strips away illusions. All the parts of yourself you hid, all the wounds you buried, all the pain you avoided, they rise to the surface now, demanding to be seen. It's not punishment, it's purification. You cry for no reason. You feel emotions that don't seem to belong to you. Old memories come back uninvited. Childhood wounds echo louder than ever. And for the first time, you can't push them down. The void forces you to sit with them. But here's the secret. This emptiness isn't a dead end. It's a womb. Something is gestating inside you. Something more real than the identity you lost. The silence, the solitude, the confusion, they are creating space for the authentic self to emerge. Think of it like clearing out a house. Every box you unpack, every piece of furniture you remove, makes room for something new to be placed there. The void feels empty only because it is preparing to be filled with truth. Still, that doesn't make it easier. Many nights you'll wonder if you're broken. Many days you'll long for your old life, not because it was better, but because it was familiar. And that's the most dangerous part of this phase. the temptation to run back to what's false just because the truth feels too quiet. But if you can hold steady, if you can let the emptiness breathe without rushing to fix it, the void becomes sacred. Because in that emptiness, you will begin to hear the whispers of your soul more clearly than ever before. And that whisper is what begins to guide you into the next stage of awakening. As you sit inside that void, another layer of awakening begins, the unraveling of your old truths. The beliefs you were taught since childhood, the values you once thought were absolute, even the definitions of success, love, and happiness, they start to dissolve. What once felt certain now feels shaky, and what once gave you direction now leaves you questioning everything. It can feel like the floor is disappearing under your feet. This is why awakening can be so disorienting. Society, family, and culture handed you a map and told you it was the way to live. Go to school, get the job, build the relationship, earn the money, chase the milestones. For years, you followed that map faithfully, but suddenly, the map makes no sense. You realize it was never your map to begin with. It was borrowed, imposed, and conditioned. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The hardest part is that these truths weren't just beliefs, they were your identity. If you no longer believe that success is about status, then who are you? If you no longer crave external approval, what drives you? If you no longer define love the way your family or culture taught you, what does love mean now? The answers don't come right away, and in their absence, you feel stripped bare, naked, vulnerable. But in that dismantling lies the gift. Because when the false truths collapse, space opens for your soul to reveal what is real. For some, that means realizing peace matters more than prestige. For others, it means discovering that love is not about possession, but about presence. These aren't ideas you read in a book. They come alive as experiences you feel in your bones. Of course, not everyone around you will understand. Friends might accuse you of changing too much. Family may think you've lost your way. But the truth is, you're finally beginning to find it. And while it hurts to be misunderstood, that very discomfort becomes the proof that your consciousness is expanding beyond the limits of your old life. This stage of losing old truths is not about replacing them instantly with new ones. It's about letting yourself sit in the rawness of not knowing, trusting that deeper wisdom will rise. And it will, but only if you resist the urge to run back to the familiar. Because just beyond this collapse, a new clarity is waiting to be born. And that clarity is where we step next. Once the old truths fall apart, you don't just lose beliefs. You begin to feel the distance between yourself and the people around you. Suddenly, conversations that once felt natural now feel hollow. The weekend gossip, the endless complaining, the obsession with trends and status, it all lands differently in your ears. You sit at the same table, but it feels like you're speaking an entirely different language. That's when the loneliness of awakening begins to reveal itself. It isn't the kind of loneliness that comes from being physically alone. In fact, you might still be surrounded by family, friends, or coworkers. But deep inside, you feel unseen, like no one truly hears the depth of what you're experiencing. And this loneliness is piercing because it reminds you of how much you've changed. You're no longer chasing what everyone else is chasing, and that shift exposes just how wide the gap has grown. Many people mistake this loneliness for something gone wrong. They think, if awakening is real, why do I feel so disconnected? But the truth is, the disconnect is proof of your growth. You're not broken. You're simply outgrowing environments that no longer nourish your soul. Think of it like climbing a mountain. At the bottom, the trail is crowded and noisy, full of chatter and laughter. But as you ascend, the path narrows, the crowd thins, and eventually you walk alone in silence. Not because you failed, but because you rose higher. And yet, that silence hurts. It hurts to lose resonance with people you once loved deeply. It hurts to have your insights dismissed or mocked. It hurts to feel like you can't share your heart without being misunderstood. But remember this, you were never meant to stay in the old crowd forever. The path of awakening is supposed to strip away false connections so that your real ones can emerge. This loneliness, as heavy as it feels, is not the end. It is a passage, a sacred clearing. It is the space in which you begin to meet your own soul more deeply than ever before. And from that meeting, new clarity is born. You may also notice that even the closest relationships, the ones you thought would last forever, begin to shift in ways you didn't expect. It's not because you stopped caring, and it's not because they suddenly became strangers. It's because your energy is no longer anchored in the same reality as theirs. Spiritual awakening changes your vibration, and once that happens, every connection you have is naturally recalibrated. Some people are pulled closer to you, others begin to drift away, and often, the ones who drift are those who are not ready to meet the new version of you. This is one of the most painful yet powerful aspects of awakening. You can sit across from someone you love and feel the gap in energy like a wall between you. Conversations that once flowed easily start to feel forced. Shared memories no longer hold the same meaning. And when you try to explain what's happening inside you, it feels like speaking a language no one else has learned yet. That silence, that disconnection, can make you wonder if you're doing something wrong. But in truth, you're simply evolving. Energetic mismatches are not failures, they're signs of growth. You're being shown that not every bond is meant to walk with you into the next chapter. Some people are part of your past self, not your future self. And while grieving those connections is natural, clinging to them only creates suffering. When you let go, you create space for alignment. You create the conditions for new souls to enter your life, ones who meet you where you are, not where you used to be. It's important to remember that detachment doesn't mean rejection. You can still love people deeply without needing them to walk your path. You can wish them well, you can hold memories with gratitude, but you don't have to force closeness when your souls are moving in different directions. True love is not about possession or constant proximity. It's about allowing freedom for them and for yourself. And in that freedom, you find a new kind of peace, one that comes not from holding on, but from letting go with grace. As you walk further on this path, solitude begins to take on a new meaning. At first, being alone feels like emptiness. You sit in quiet rooms, scroll past conversations you no longer want to join, and wonder if you've made a mistake. But slowly, something shifts. The silence stops feeling heavy and starts feeling alive. The space you once feared becomes the very ground where your soul finds its voice. Instead of searching for constant company, you begin to savor your own presence. Instead of numbing yourself with noise, you start listening to what rises in the stillness. This is where the deeper work of awakening truly begins. Alone with yourself, you can no longer hide behind distractions. Old wounds surface, childhood echoes return. The pain you avoided for years comes knocking at your door. And though it feels overwhelming, it is also the medicine. Every tear, every ache, every moment of vulnerability is a release of the past you carried without knowing. Healing in solitude isn't glamorous, but it's transformative. You start realizing that you don't need the approval or validation of others to define your worth. Your soul begins to validate itself. The strange irony is that as you grow more comfortable in your solitude, you become less lonely. The craving to be understood softens. The pressure to prove yourself fades. You stop trying to explain your path to people who aren't ready to listen, and instead, you embody it quietly. You walk through the world lighter, calmer, more anchored, and that presence alone becomes magnetic. Without forcing anything, you begin to attract the people, opportunities, and experiences that resonate with your frequency. Not because you went searching, but because you allowed space for them to arrive. Solitude also awakens a deeper sensitivity to life itself. You notice how the wind feels on your skin, how sunlight moves across a wall, how your breath steadies when you pause long enough to feel it. These small, ordinary details carry a sacred weight you never noticed before. This is the gift of stillness. It teaches you that meaning doesn't have to be grand or loud. It can be quiet, subtle, woven into the fabric of everyday existence. And once you begin to see life this way, you realize you were never truly alone. The universe was always right there with you, waiting for you to notice. And so the journey comes full circle. What began as confusion, disconnection, and even heartbreak has quietly transformed into a deeper belonging, not to the world, but to yourself. Awakening doesn't hand you a perfect life tied neatly with a bow. It strips away the illusions so that you can finally see clearly. It pulls you out of roles you were never meant to play and returns you to the raw truth of your soul. Yes, it hurts to lose people, places, and versions of yourself that once felt safe. Yes, it can feel terrifying to stand alone in the silence. But with time, you realize the silence isn't empty. It's filled with guidance, with peace, with a kind of strength you never knew you had. Every ending you've endured was clearing space for something real. Every night you cried thinking you were lost was actually a doorway opening, and every season of loneliness was preparing you to step into a life aligned with your deepest truth. That's why people feel like strangers after awakening. It's not because you're broken, it's because you've changed. You've remembered who you are, and from that remembrance, you will draw to you those who truly see you, those who speak your soul's language without needing words. So if you're in that space right now, standing in the in-between, wondering if you'll ever belong again, know this: you already do. You belong to yourself. You belong to the truth that no one can take away. And the moment you fully accept that, life begins to meet you with mirrors that reflect your growth, your light, your essence. This is not the end. It's the beginning of living from authenticity, presence, and love. The world doesn't need you to fit in. It needs you to shine as you are. So keep going, keep trusting, and keep honoring your path, even when it feels lonely. Because the ones meant for you will find you, and when they do, the connection will feel like home. If this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe for more, share your thoughts in the comments, and pass this along to someone who might need the reminder today. You are not lost. You are awakening, and your soul knows exactly where to go from here.